Hello, Gunpla fans of YouTube. It is I, DZ Maven here, and it's time for another Gunpla review, Unscripted. Today I'm taking a look at a P Bandai kit, and this is probably the most popular P Bandai kit to come out this year. It is the massive Gundam Mark V. In case you don't know, the Mark V is from Gundam Sentinel. This was the chief mobile suit of the antagonist in the manga, whose name is, if I can recall correctly, Brave Cod. Yes, he's named after a fish. But yes, the Gundam Mark V is pretty infamous for being one of the most pretty powerful mobile suits at the time it came out, and it kind of proved this pretty well because this thing actually took out pretty easily 3 full armor double Zeta Gundams, as well as pretty much, I think it kind of wrecked the initial Sentinel Gundam as well, and later on the Sentinel had to be upgraded into the XS, is it XS Sentinel or Extra Sentinel? I don't know. Sometimes I would call it the EXS Gundam, but it took that level of power to overcome this machine here, so it was kind of developed from the Psycho Gundam Mark II, and you can see a little bit of traces of that in the design of this kit here. But anyway, this kit came out in April of 2021, and it retails for 8,000 yen. It was available in the US P Bandai store for a while, so if you missed your chance to get one, you'll probably have to look on the secondhand market for it. This is a pretty expensive kit, so don't be surprised to see this going for around $100 or so. Hopefully Bandai will reprint this kit in the future. Considering how popular it seems to be, it probably wouldn't be out of the question here. That we would see a reprint of this at some point, and I kind of hope we do, because it is actually a pretty good kit. I pretty much enjoyed working on this here. So let's go ahead and get to the photos here, my photo gallery, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about this kit here. Alright, so starting off, got the box art, some really fantastic looking box art here. The Gundam Mark V in battle pose with its incoms out and the beam rifle. Side of the box gives you a little closer view of it, and here's the information on the side of the box. You can just look over that here. This is a mobile suit of the new Decides Quasi Psychocom mobile suit here. As a P Bandai kit, this does come with water slide decals, by the way, just in case you were wondering. And here are the little showcase of the accessories here. You got your missile pods, the incoms, beam rifle, and massive ZZ Gundam sized beam saber with this, as well as a pretty thick shield as well, which is actually a shield booster here. But and here's what you get, and the box is opened up. And we'll take a look at the manual here. And as you can see on the manual here, they kind of show that this derived from the Psycho Gundam Mark II as well as the Gundam Mark IV. You know, it's kind of a combination of those two, and its development also led into the creation of the Doven Wolf as well as the Silver Bullet. So basically, Zeon got the plans for this machine and developed their own Doven Wolf based on it. It does come with polycaps. It doesn't really use too many polycaps, but they are used throughout the joints here. So construction of the kit is actually pretty standard for a master grade kit. Nothing really out of the ordinary. I kind of noticed when I was building it. Just be careful there. If you're planning on building it with just the internal frame, just kind of keep that in mind ahead of time while you're kind of working on it, because trying to backstep on this thing is a little tricky here. I will say you do get 2 sets of the antennas for the head. I'm hesitant to call them V-fins because they kind of look more like antennas to me, but you do get 2 sets of them. They are kind of loose in the head, so I would suggest probably gluing those. I went ahead and glued the ones on mine because they kind of move around really easily. It does come with fixed pose hands. You get 2 sets of open hands, 2 sets of closed hands, 2 sets of trigger holding hands, and 2 sets of hands for holding the beam saber. I'm probably just going to go through this pretty quick here. Just to kind of let you see what's inside the booklet here. Come on. So here it is, little pose against the, I think that's the XS Gundam there. The XS Gundam, because it's excessive. You can always pause this or look at the gallery if you want to look at the manual with a little bit more detail here. I'm just going to kind of get through this here. Alright, so here we got the water slides, and you do get a set of foil stickers for all the various clear parts throughout the kit. There actually are quite a number of clear sensors throughout the kit. And as normally, unlike another Gundam kits, you normally just have like the head sensors and maybe a scope for the beam rifle. There's actually a bit of a few more things going on here with the clear parts, but you can use the stickers for those or paint those up if you want. You do get the wires for the incom as well as the water slides here. There's not a whole lot of elaborate water slide decals here. I'll definitely say the most challenging one is this giant D decal. Make sure you have some decal softener on hand, because you're going to need a lot of that to get that to flatten down onto kind of an oddly shaped surface that it has to go on. So I had to use a lot to get that to flatten out. Here's the A runner, kind of a standard gray plastic along with a few bits of red for the internal cockpit area, the door and the missile pods, and one yellow piece for the collar, and then you have all these clear parts along the top here. B runner, getting some more gray internal frame. You have your hand parts here, parts for the inside of hips, and parts for the torso and head in here as well. C1 runner, we have parts for the leg as well as some parts for the torso, and parts for the feet, and some parts for the shield up here. C2, more the same, it's just kind of the same runner, just leaving out the parts for the shield. Runner D, you get two of these. These are more parts for the legs, the side skirts, the feet, arms, and parts for the knee joint, as well as the NCOMs are on there as well. The E runner, get two of those. Again, more parts for the legs. You've got parts for the missile pods, parts for the shoulders and the arms, and parts for the backpack, looks like as well, and the feet. Alright, on the F runner, we got our sort of a, it's kind of a grayish light blue color. Parts for the torso here, the hips, front skirt, and head right here. G runner, we got the parts for the shield here. Actually quite a number of parts that go into the shield, and maybe that's because just the way the whole part is designed. So you have all these white parts kind of sandwiched in between all the blue parts on the shield. So it's actually quite a bit of plastic in the shield. And there's two of the H runners. Again, parts for the side skirts, parts for torso, the arms, upper leg, the beam sabers, and parts for the backpack. On the I runner, we have parts mainly for the legs and the hatches for the missile pods. J1 runner, we have our first white plastic. It's just a standard white. Parts for the legs and knees, some of these thrusters. Here's your first set of the antennas. You have one pilot figure that goes inside the kit. There is no standing pilot figure to go outside of it. And J2 is kind of a partial copy of that with additional parts for the shield. K1 runner has your parts for, this is kind of a dark blue, parts for the feet and the beam rifle. And K2 is just sort of a partial duplicate, and these are the parts for the other foot. And you get one set of these large beam sabers. These are the perfect grade size beam sabers. They're the same ones that came with the ZZ Gundam Verka, as well as some of the other perfect grade kits. And you get one set of polycaps. You actually do end up using quite a number of these polycaps, but it doesn't really seem like they're kind of that prevalent throughout the kit. They're mainly just in the joints. Alright, now we're getting some construction kits. So with this kit here, I I like to call this is an extra effort kit. This is why this kind of took me a little longer to work on here, because I was going to do a little bit of extra detail painting, and you kind of see here what I kind of do with the hands here. Kind of trying to mimic the look of the hands on the Perfect Grade Unleashed Gundam here by having the joints kind of chromed up here with some silver paint. I think it looks pretty nice. Here's a look at the side skirt here. The only reason I kind of took this photo here because I was kind of curious why they had this extra piece that kind of sandwiched between the two frame pieces. I was kind of thinking, couldn't it have just been kind of molded in as one half of these things or something like that? But I guess not that big a deal. I was just kind of wondering why they had an extra part for that. It could have just been part of, you know, one of these two parts here, but I was just wondering about that. That's why I took a picture of this. So here's a close-up look at the cockpit, or the emergency escape pod cockpit here. I went ahead and painted the inside silver just to kind of mimic the view screen effect, as well as the pilot figure here. Didn't really paint the pilot figure here, but I did kind of detail in the mask here, and of course did the panel lining on it here. So you can go ahead and see that before it gets inside the kit, where you won't be able to see it. And here's some of the various clear parts throughout the kit. I went ahead and painted all of these. Just used my clear acrylic paints along with some silver behind them. This is the scope for the beam rifle. This is a part for the shield. These two pieces are for the beam rifle. This is for the shield, and this is also for the beam rifle right here. Alright, so here is the internal frame. It's actually a pretty decent looking internal frame. I mean, it's not super detailed, but there's enough detail on it to probably make it look pretty decent if you kind of work on it a little bit like I did here. There is no, oddly enough, there is no internal frame for the forward part of the feet here, so it kind of looks like the toes are missing here because there is no internal frame for the toes, so that's just the way it is. But for this, I basically did my basic panel lining with the marker pen and did some detail painting with silver and gold, kind of my usual go-to colors here. And I went ahead and used some of my my artist acrylic paints and did some light dry brushing kind of over the internal frame to kind of give it a little bit more of a textured look to it here. I think it turned out quite nice, even though you're not really going to see this once everything's put together here. There's a little bit of close-up of the torso here. So you can see I went ahead and painted all the clear parts on the head as well. And here's another shot of the cockpit area without the armor on. It's pretty easy to see it here. Not so much when you get the everything else on here though. A close up of the arm here, and there a close up of the upper body here. And just kind of trying out a few articulation poses here. It's surprisingly a pretty articulate frame without the armor on, so it can actually do quite a number of poses. And despite how big it is, it's actually quite articulate. Can really bend over quite far, as you can see here. And it can kind of do, I don't know what you call this pose, but I was just kind of playing around and wanted to see what I can do. So it's like the hula pose it's trying to do here. Here's a look at the knee bend here. And as you can see, the leg without the armor, it can go all the way up. There's like no problem there. I do also want to point out here, there is no adjustable hip mechanism in this kit, unlike in most other Master Grades I've seen. The kit, although this kit doesn't really need it though, so because the way the side skirts are attached to the legs instead attached to the hips, the side skirts don't really interfere with the way the legs move around, so kind of an interesting plus there to the design. And here is the kit with everything on it complete, decaled. This is top coated, and I did do dry brushing on the outside of the kit. Not super heavy, but kind of just enough to kind of make it look a little bit weathered here. So kind of the same effect I tried to do with my full armor Thunderbolt Gundam from many years ago. I felt like this kit deserved a little bit of an extra treatment to it, so I went ahead and spent some time with it. So I think it turned out pretty good. Here's a close-up of the head and upper area. Just kind of let you see here. Did a little bit detail painting in gray. Again, with these antennas, you want to make sure you kind of glue those in because they will move around every time I try to adjust the head if you don't, because they're just kind of sitting in there, and you want to be careful when handling them, especially in turning the head, because the antennas will hit these large radiator vents or whatever these things are sticking out of the shoulders. So just kind of be careful about that. So here's a shot of the backside with the shield booster attached. So I will say it's not as easy as it might appear to get the shield booster attached onto the back. You really have to kind of maneuver these two halves of the backpack far enough apart to get the shield booster in, and it's kind of a little tricky to get it in. So they make it seem like it's really easy to do in the manual, but you kind of have to really fiddle with it quite a bit to get it in there. So now doing some more articulation test. Again, it's pretty articulate. I'm not gonna like really put it to the extreme, since I went ahead and put top coat on it anyway, so some of the joints are a little stiffer than they normally would be. So I'm not really gonna try and do anything too extreme with it, because otherwise I might end up stressing the parts a little bit too much on this here. But as you can see, the shoulder joint will come out a little bit. You got that little ball joint in there, so you will get a little bit of a clavicle joint in there. And here showing off the pose again with the armor on. Doesn't bend back quite as far, but it can still kind of get that pose. And here it is with the cockpit hatch open. I went ahead and used my flash here to kind of light up the inside there a little bit here, but you can kind of see the pod. You can see his foot right there. And here's a close look at the hip joint area. Go ahead and spread the side skirts out, as well as moving the front skirt down, so you can kind of see inside of here, just to kind of see how far those will go. They'll move out of the way a little bit here. And here's some more pose testing here. Despite being such a big kit, it actually has a pretty decent level of balance to it here, because mainly the feet are kind of big, so you can it's able to hold poses pretty well. And here's just a demonstration of the knee bend and the foot bend joints here. I will say it is a little tricky to get the full bend out of the leg, because the side skirt, as you can see, I went ahead and took it off here, but the side skirt kind of hits these thrusters that kind of stick out at the middle part of the leg a bit, so it kind of gets in the way a little bit. So I went ahead and took it off, that way you can kind of bend the knee all the way. This big thruster bell on the back of the leg will kind of adjust itself slightly to allow a fuller bend, but it is a little kind of hard to get it to that point, because the side skirt kind of gets in the way a little bit there. And here is the kick upwards. Again, it can do a pretty decent job of that, because the side skirt doesn't really get in the way. So pretty well designed. Here, look at the back of the leg. These little side thruster vents, they are kind of on ball joints, and they kind of can spread out from the leg a little bit here. They're kind of stiff on mine, because there's basically just top coat paint on the ball joint, so it kind of really stiffened those up quite a bit for me. But they will move around just a little bit here, up and down, and kind of out to the side just a little bit. And here it is with the incoms, or my best attempt at posing with the incoms here. They're not really easy to pose with, as I already expected to, but if you want to use the full length of wire, that's probably what you're going to get out of it here. So a lot of people tend to cut the wire shorter here, which is probably not a bad idea. You might want to consider that if you do have the kit. And here's just another shot of the incom here. And this is how it is attached in the back. This kind of, the wires just plug into these little holes right here. I will note, if you are going to paint this kit and use the water slides, I kind of made this mistake by accident here, but the tolerances here for where the incoms attach on the back here and slide into the backpack here, you want to be really careful with that, because I accidentally scraped the decal off on one of my incoms, just kind of putting it back inside the backpack. So just my suggestion here is you might want to file this out a little bit here, so there's a little bit more clearance for the incom to fit in there, so you don't scrape the decal, so you don't kind of make the same mistake I did. So just be aware of that. Here's the backpack will move around and adjust itself to it's on ball joints here, as well as the beam sabers can kind of move around a little bit for positioning. You went ahead and flipped those all the way around to the front, so the beam sabers are basically firing their beam guns out through the front. This is how it looks from the back here. And this is with the beam sabers stuck in, just to kind of pretend firing like an effect pose here. So, and on the bottom here, this is where the action-based connector attaches to. It's a pretty decent action-based connector. No real complaints about it. It clips in pretty well here, so I'm not worried about like slipping out or anything like that. Here's another shot of the upper body here. These are the hatches for the missile pods. They will open up like so. And then you just kind of stick those on. Hatches will open up this way, and you can kind of adjust and spread those out depending on however you want. I have noticed on some other people's reviews, they kind of put these together, I don't want to say the wrong way, but they kind of have the missile pods facing each other instead of being parallel. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is the way it's supposed to be according to the manual here. So all I'm going to say is, like, pay close attention to the way you're assembling these, because I almost made the same mistake of having them facing each other. I guess it's like a really easy mistake to make here, but you don't want to try to take those back apart again, because it's not really easy to do. Don't ask me how I know. I just know. Anyway, here's that shield booster attached to the arm. It's a big shield booster. It's big and it's chunky, and I'll be honest, it kind of gets in the way of posing a bit, because it is so big. As you can see, it's kind of hitting the missile pods right there. It's just, it looks nice, but man, is it big. And here it is with the beam saber here. It's basically the same sort of holding hands that the ZZ Gundam Verkaw has, so if you ever built that kit, this is pretty much the same deal as that. Here's just another shot with the beam saber. And here is the beam rifle here. It's actually a pretty big beam rifle. It's not super detailed or complicated looking, but it is pretty nice looking. I don't know why, it's kind of a chunky beam rifle, and I kind of like it here. Very big scope, but it's very plain on its detail, so I went ahead and kind of did some extra painting on it just to kind of add a little bit more variety of color to it. Otherwise, it's just kind of a dark blue color all over. Now, those clear parts, there'll be one that goes on the top and two along the side, as well as in addition to the scope here. If you are going to paint those, make sure you paint those before you put them in the beam rifle. Otherwise, once you get them in, they'll be kind of hard to take back out. And there is just a shot from the front here. And box shot pose. Can it do the box shot pose? Pretty much. The only thing I will say is that it is kind of hard to get this this right leg into the correct pose. I think they took a few liberties on the box art here to kind of get it into position here. I found the skirt armor kind of got in the way a little bit here, but I think I got it pretty close enough here. And here are the accessories that come with the kit here. So obviously you got your beam rifle, you got your shield booster, you got your two big beam sabers here. I don't know if they're actually called hyper beam sabers on this kit or not. I think they're just called beam sabers. You get your two missile pods, you get your two incoms with the wires, and your sets of fingers and hands. And because we all love size comparisons, because this is a big boy here, here it is next to the Granddaddy RX-72 Gundam. We have the smaller Gundam F90, as well as the ZZ Gundam Verkaw here. So you can kind of get an idea just how big this guy is. But wait, there's more. What about next to the Sazabi NVO? It's actually kind of roughly on the same size as those two other master grades. Although the Gundam Mark V is nowhere near as chunky as either of these two, but on height, it's about the same. as those two. So it looks pretty good in the lineup with these other two large master grade mobile suits here. And that is it for the photos. Alright, let's switch to the live view. Alright, so here's the live view of the kit here. I pretty much already talked mostly everything I kind of really need to mention about this kit here. I'm not going to pose it too much here on the live view, mainly because I don't want to scrape up the paint job I have here, but this will just give you a chance to kind of look around here. I do want to say this little back piece here will move around like so. If you wanted to, you can kind of pose it around. You know, kind of while building this, like this thing kind of reminds me of a wasp or a hornet. I don't know if that was kind of the design aesthetic they were going for, but it kind of makes me think of like a big mean hornet or a wasp. And seeing this on the back here kind of makes me think of that a bit here too. But this will move around. The missile pods, as I talked about, you can kind of move these around a little bit here, how you want them to. The missile pod hatches open up, like so. This hedge here again, be careful posing the hedge here. We'll move up like so and look down like that and look up. So again, you can see like the antennas are kind of hitting these things here. Be careful about that. You don't want to bend your antennas, or V-fins if you want to call them that. But the head articulation is pretty decent. So cockpit hatch, just kind of gotta get your finger in there and it opens up like so. Pretty easy. As I mentioned, this shield booster here, pretty big. It does kind of get in the way of the posing a little bit here. See if I can just take this off here real carefully. Which way? There we go. Come off. So I can get it off. There we go. I'm gonna set that aside here. But so we will get some rotation joint here in the torso, like so. And then forward about that far. And then back about that far here. Actually, I should be able to get a little bit more out of the torso, but yeah, okay, yeah, it can bend more forward than that. Now, I did notice there doesn't really seem to be like any like side to side on the torso, but even though there does seem to be a joint in here for that, but it doesn't really bend very far here, so I can get like a little bit out of it like that here, but not a whole lot. I wouldn't really want to stress this joint too much here, so I'm going to kind of be careful about that. But the side skirt, again, attached to the leg, you can kind of move it out a little bit like that. You get the leg up all the way like so. Now, as I said, it's kind of hard for me to get the full leg bend because eventually these things start to hit the side skirt here. So I can't really quite get the full bend out of the leg, but I guess for what it is, you can get a pretty decent pose out of it. Down here on the foot here, you can kind of see the toe bend right there. So that's how far the foot will bend here. It's a pretty interesting foot here. You got these three foot pads on here, and it's a pretty broad surface here, so it's got, again, like I mentioned, because the way the foot is, it's got a lot of stability to it. The way it rotates is a little weird. It kind of goes like this here, so it's not really side to side or anything like that. It just kind of rotates this way here. So when you're posing it, just kind of remember that. Don't try and move it this way. It has to kind of rotate. So you don't want to stress this joint too much here, otherwise I'm kind of worried this might break if there's like paint on here or anything like that. So backpack here, I guess I can show this off a little bit here. So this is kind of the way it kind of moves about and adjusts here. This will spread apart just a little bit here. It's not easy to do here. Let's see if I can demonstrate here on the camera here, but yeah, you can see it kind of spreads apart just a little bit like that. And that's for helping to maneuver the beam gun underneath the torso like that. You can do that. Or you can just come out all the way like that. As I said, it's kind of hard to get the shield booster on the back without moving everything around, or these things just kind of come right out. Get back in there. This will go back on here. You have to kind of make sure you flip that around that way and stick it on like so. And then kind of do your best to kind of get these back in position here. Like you guys can see, they are kind of scraping along the sides of this thing here, so it's not a big deal, just gotta kind of be careful about that. So if you do paint this kit, just keep in mind this, keep in mind the incons here, and just don't weaken any of the joints, like the ankle joint here or the joint here on the middle and in the torso right here. So, but other than that, this is actually a very good master grade kit. I'm actually quite impressed with this thing. I really enjoyed working on this here. So, as you can tell, because I spent almost like 3 weeks on this here, so I'm just singing the praises of this kit here, and it is good. It really is that good. So I'm actually really glad I picked one of these up. So if you're interested in this kit, hopefully, like I said, hopefully Bandai will reprint these kits in the future at some point. If not, then you're probably gonna have to pay extra on the third-party market for these. And is it worth $100? Maybe. So, see if I can balance him on the shield booster here. He's not really a flat back now, so kind of maneuver him around here. Some of the joints on my kit are kind of stiff again because there's paint on here. So, again, accessories. I already kind of talked about these. There's the beam saber. It's a big beam saber. So, but yeah. Anyway, that is gonna be it for my review of the Gundam Mark V. Quite an impressive master grade kit, and probably one of the best ones to come out this year, definitely. So, yeah, as I said, the backpack just kind of came right off there, and the armor now is falling apart here. Get back on there. You didn't see that. You didn't see anything. It's a wonderful kit, but it does fall apart a little bit. There you go. Put it back on. Alright. Yeah, we'll just leave the shield off for now. Anyway, Gundam Mark V. Excellent kit. Big thumbs up for me. So anyway, thanks for watching. I will do some more Gunpla reviews. I got more kits coming, so leave a like if you liked. Comment below what you think of this kit, or you think my job I did on this is pretty good or not. Always curious to know. Anyway, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.